What really happened to Jungkook? This question arises not because of one big statement or open confession, but because of small details that have not gone unnoticed by the public lately. Not something flashy, nor is the drama officially announced, but a subtle change that feels even more powerful because it comes in silence. In recent times, many have begun to feel that Jungkook looks different. Not drastic, not extreme, but enough to spark curiosity. The usually spontaneous gestures now seem more restrained. Expressions that used to be easy to read now feel deeper, as if they hold something that is not ready to be expressed. To some, this may seem a trifle, but for those who have been following his journey for a long time, these kinds of small details rarely appear for no reason. Jungkook is known for being expressive in his own way. He doesn't always talk much, but his actions are often honest. For this reason, the slightest changes are in the spotlight, not because the public wants to judge, but because there is an emotional bond built over the years. Every smile, look, or silence has its own meaning. Some fans began to recall earlier moments when Jungkook chose silence in the middle of the spotlight. As a rule, such phases relate to internal processes, either fatigue, self-reflection, or an important decision under consideration. But this time, the context feels different. Small details that appear as if standing on their own, without accompanying explanations. And on social media, the discussion developed in a relatively calm tone. There were no outbursts of excessive speculation, but rather careful observation. Many choose gentle words, trying to understand without going over the edge. It shows how the relationship between Jungkook and his fans has evolved. It is no longer just one-sided admiration, but mutual respect for space and time. Interestingly, the small details of concern do not come from a single source. It arises from various separate moments that, at first glance, seem ordinary, but if they are assembled, they form a pattern that makes people stop for a moment. This pattern does not scream, does not demand attention, but precisely because of this it feels real. Some people try to see it from the human side. Jungkook, despite all the global achievements and highlights, is still someone who grew up under tremendous pressure from a young age. The long years of being at the forefront of the entertainment industry certainly left an emotional imprint. In that context, small changes can be a sign of a maturing process, not something to be afraid of. However, there are those who feel that silence and these small details carry a certain weight, not in a negative sense, but rather as a reflection of the great responsibility that continues to be assumed. Jungkook is in a position where every step is observed, every change is interpreted. It's not surprising that he chose to be more careful in presenting himself. What makes this situation even more interesting is the absence of clarification. There are no official statements, no lengthy explanations. The silence itself seems to be part of the story. In a world accustomed to instant openness, silence becomes something that invites greater attention. Day by day passed, and the little detail remained the subject of discussion. But instead of turning into wild rumors, these discussions have developed into joint reflections about how we read signs, about the boundary between caring and demanding, and about how to make room for someone who has lived under the spotlight for a long time. In the end, the question, what happened to Jungkook? Maybe we don't have a clear answer yet, and maybe it's not time yet. It could be that there is not one major event behind all this, but a silent process that is taking place. A process that does not always need to be announced, but that remains real for those who experience it. That little detail, whatever its meaning, has reminded many that behind the big stage and the cheers, there is a human side that still walks slowly, looking for balance. And for many fans, waiting with understanding may be the most sincere form of support right now. As time goes on, that attention to small details doesn't fade. On the contrary, it is felt more and more because it appears in the middle of an already calmer atmosphere. Jungkook did not disappear completely, but his presence was felt differently, more carefully, more measured. For some people, these changes may be difficult to explain in words, but the feeling of something has changed is still strong. Many soldiers began to realize that Jungkook these days prefers to speak through actions rather than words. The silence option is not empty, but full of layers. Every brief occurrence, every simple gesture is read not as a coincidence, but rather as a small snippet of a larger story. It is not about seeking sensations, but rather about trying to understand that in the fan community, a new awareness of limits emerged. That not all changes have to be drawn to big conclusions, and not all small details mean that there is a big problem behind it. However, the sense of caring remains. A concern born from a long journey, from watching Jungkook grow, fall, rise, and continue to walk under a spotlight that almost never goes out. Some people attribute these changes to a reasonable phase of maturation. Jungkook, who used to be known for spontaneous fun, is now at a different point in life. The responsibility is greater, the burden heavier, and the expectations that surround it are much more complex. In that context, small changes are not a sign of self-loss, but rather a sign of someone who is rearranging his priorities. But there are also those who see a deeper emotional side. That Jungkook's silence may hold many things that are not easily shared. The world of entertainment often demands a smile, even when the heart is tired. In such situations, choosing restraint can be the most honest form of protection. Not moving away, but keeping yourself intact. Interestingly, more and more people are starting to change the way they respond. If in the past every small change immediately triggered anxiety, now more people choose to be patient. There is an unspoken agreement among fans not to press, not to force, and not to turn caring into demanding. It is a more mature form of love, although not always easy. The small details that concern it also begin to be understood as a reflection of the process. A process that may be long, perhaps laborious, but important. Jungkook is not disappearing. He is moving at his own pace. And that rhythm, although different from before, remains valid. Outside the fan community, industry observers have also begun to take note. They see that what is happening is not a single phenomenon, but rather part of a pattern that often appears in public figures who have been at the top for a long time. When the spotlight is too bright, a small pause becomes a necessity. When expectations are too high, silence becomes a safe space. Day after day, the story develops without a big bang. No dramatic confessions, no lengthy clarifications. There is only time, and time is often the most honest explanation. Meanwhile, the small details that once seemed odd are starting to feel more human. It is no longer a puzzle to be solved, but a signal that Jungkook is in a different phase. At this point, many began to realize that the question, what happened to Jungkook, probably does not need a single answer. It could be that the answer is simple. It is living with all its complexity. It is learning, it is rearranging, it is taking a breath in the middle of a long journey. That small detail has done one important thing. It reminds that behind the big image, there is a human being who has the right to change. Entitled to silence. Entitled to walk slowly. And for those who really care, support does not always mean knowing everything, but rather remaining even if not everything is explained. In the end, this attention to small details turns from a sense of anxiety into a joint reflection. About how we see idols, about how we make room, and about how silence does not always mean distance. Jungkook may not have said anything yet, but his silence has opened up a deeper conversation about empathy, patience, and understanding. And maybe that's where the biggest meaning is. That not all stories should be told in loud words. Sometimes, the small details that appear in silence are enough to remind us that behind the spotlight, there is a heart that is constantly trying to find balance.